Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rotary District 5030 District Training Festival. And you are in a wonderful session about starting an Interact Club. My name is Lisa Edwards, and I'll be the tech support this evening. I'm going to be turning off my camera so that you can focus on our two dynamic presenters, Susan Bills from the Rotary Club of Mercer Island and Natalia Harris from the Rotary Club of Covington. I do want to mention that you are muted so that we can focus on the information the presenters have prepared. And I want to encourage you to look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a couple of voice bubbles that have the words Q&A next to them. And that is your place to click and type in a question that we will have the presenters answer at the end of the session. So they're going to give the presentation, and then we will dedicate time at the end of the presentation to answer questions that you have about starting your own Interact Club. I do also want to mention that this presentation is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube in case there are other club members whom you will be recruiting and would like to involve in starting your own Interact Club. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Susan Bills and Natalia Harris.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're so happy that you are joining us for this fun session about starting an Interact Club. So first of all, a little bit about me. I'm the current Interact Chair for District 5030. This is my 9th year in this role. And I'm very excited to introduce you to Natalia Harris, who is going to be our Interact Chair starting this next Rotary year. She is also the incoming president of her Rotary Club, which is the Rotary Club of Covington, and the liaison to the Matson Middle School Interact Club in Covington. So she is a busy person. So what we're going to do this evening is we're going to talk about why should you start an Interact Club, what are the benefits, how it will help your club, and how does it help Rotary, and especially how do the students benefit from being in an Interact Club. So we'll start by telling you just a bit about the clubs that we currently have in District 5030. We have 20 Interact Clubs. Here they all are. They are all sponsored by one of our Rotary clubs, excuse me. And the 4 that are in green font are brand new this year. So North Shore Interact is sponsored by our Woodinville Club, and it's our only community-based club. This is a new thing for us because all of the others are school-based. So we have a liaison from each club. We have a school advisor. And then, of course, we've got our students. But in North Shore, we've got 5 high schools feeding to this community-based club. And this is a new experience for us. And it's really, really been fun to help them get started. Riverview Youth Council is sponsored by Duval. The Center School is sponsored by Lake Union. And Vashon Island, of course, is sponsored by Vashon Island. So these are all high school clubs except for Matson Middle School. And this isn't really kind of a cool thing for our district. This club has been around for a couple of years, and Natalia, again, is the liaison, and she can talk more about that. But what's really neat about it is that you start young people getting involved in Rotary programs really young, and then they feed to a high school club. In this particular case, Matson feeds to Kentwood High School, which is a very active Interact Club. And then hopefully from there on, once they get interested in Interact, they will become involved with Rotaract and then eventually Rotarians.
Perfect, thank you, Susan. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how you can start an Interact Club. You want to start with 3 key people. There's the liaison from your Rotary Club. You have a faculty advisor that's at the school, and then you have a student leader. And it's important to keep in mind that you'll initially start with a group of students who are interested in the club, but it'll be a gradual process to build the club and get the board to where you want it to be together, okay? And it is a student-led club, and we're here as coaches and mentors to them. So that is our primary role, but we want them to take leadership in their club. Okay, so let's get started. This is what it takes to be an Interact liaison. The liaison is the link between your Rotary Club and the Interact Club. That's the person who provides information to your board about the Interact Club activities and projects that they're doing. The liaison is there to get support and funding for the Interact Club, and they're there to involve the interactors in meaningful projects that your club is doing as well. And we love to see close relationships and mentorships between the Interact Club and their sponsoring Rotary Club. So we do encourage that liaisons also invite the Interact students to join the Rotary Club meetings as well. And another role, and the big key role for the Interact liaison, is to be familiar with the district youth protection policy. And the liaison will be the one to complete the volunteer youth service application. They'll undergo a background check, and they'll also complete online youth protection awareness training, because the liaison will be the one to oversee that Rotary standards for youth protection are being adhered to in the Interact Club. And before we discuss the liaison's role as a mentor, let me take a moment to emphasize that the Interact Club exists for the students' benefit. That is what our focus is, not for us necessarily. So it's okay to involve the interactors in our activities, like auctions and fundraising and things like that. But our primary goal is not to have them help us, but for us to help them with their projects, their vision, their goals. Okay. That being said, a liaison should attend as many meetings as they're able to and introduce the students to the guiding principles of Rotary in service of self, the four-way test, and the object of Rotary. And they're there to help provide leadership opportunities for the students, to help them establish the goals and the vision for their club, and to support their interests and to support what they want to do as far as their service projects go. Okay, and a school-based Interact Club must have a faculty advisor who makes sure that the club meets all the school standards, because we know that different schools in different school districts have specific requirements for a club, and it's the responsibility of the advisor to make sure that they're in tune and they know what those requirements are. And the advisor will mentor and motivate. They're going to offer advice while students are planning their projects. And they're also there to kind of provide conflict resolution if there's any problems that come up. And the advisor is the one who will also oversee officer elections. So that's a fun role that they get to have. Let's see here. Additional responsibilities of the advisor, they're to attend club meetings. We want you to stay involved. They're the primary contact for us. They're going to supervise club activities. They're the ones who know the students, and they're going to help get the club get organized by way of creating a calendar or some form of communication that can be used to reach all the students. And that way, important dates for Interact, Rotary, and school functions can be kept together. And as mentioned before, schools may vary in policy, so the advisor of the club will be responsible for securing any parental consent requirements for social media activities. And then you'll notice at the bottom, making sure youth protection policies are followed is listed in both the role for the liaison and the advisor. So it's important to emphasize that youth protection is a responsibility for everyone working with the youth. And everyone working with them must be familiar with the policy so that we can make sure that they're being followed whenever the kids are traveling, working with other adults, or using social media. So a few of the other responsibilities, we want to make sure that the club advisors maintain accurate club records and that they contact Rotary at the beginning of every year to submit the most updated information. And the advisor is a key strategic partner and the person that we are going to relentlessly bother to make sure that the kids are involved in attending any kind of district leadership training, RILA, for example, and other service opportunities locally in our district. And I would love to take the time to ask that the advisors and liaisons stay in touch with me and communicate their club strategies and ideas. That way we can all be in this together, and you never know, your solution to a problem, maybe a solution that some other neighboring club is looking for. And I would be happy to have that information to be able to share them and connect you with them and them with you. Okay. And before we dive into the roles of the students, let me repeat what I said earlier about not feeling intimidated by thinking that you need to have a perfect board ideal setup ready to go immediately. It's gradual development to find what works for your club. For example, Matteson Middle School Interact Club, I think they started with a president and a secretary. They didn't quite have many of the other roles, but in the following years, they were able to build their club to have a full board and even subcommittees within that board. And it's a great club, but it took time and adjustments to get them the level of success that they have. So don't be intimidated. We're here to help you, and we want your Interact Club to succeed. Okay, soapbox moving over. Here is the recommended board positions we suggest you work with towards initially. You'll want to have a president who will be the one leading the club meetings. They're going to appoint committee chairs. They're helping create a budget, managing club finances, and they're the ones working directly with the club liaison and advisor. And it's also important to have a vice president who can assume the duties of the president if something were to happen, if the president can make every meeting or every activity and event. Okay. You will also want to have a treasurer, and that person will assist the president in creating a budget. They'll manage and report on the funds like any kind of regular Rotary Club treasurer would do, and they collect dues and fees. And let me clarify, we don't want the kids actually holding on to and safeguarding any of the cash. So that would go to the adults. And as an example of what I mean is Matteson Interact, they design t-shirts and sweatshirts for their club members. And most of the cost was covered by the sponsoring Rotary Club, but they were required to submit a certain fee. And so the treasurer would collect that fee and hand it off to the adults, but they would be the ones responsible for tracking who's paid. The same thing went for their field trip fees and similar things like that. Okay, and then last but not least, you'll need a secretary, and they're going to record and maintain meeting minutes, and they're the ones responsible for sending club communications out to the students via email or whatever social networking thing they may be doing. Let's see here. Let me wrap this portion up by discussing membership recruitment, because we're so wonderful and good at that. All the roles of the Interact Club board include recruiting members, because if you want to have a healthy, thriving club, the students themselves are what's going to get you more members. Their testimonials about your club, the fun that they're having, they're going to invite their friends, and their word is really what's going to get you those numbers. And as the liaisons and advisors, you'll want to start planning the recruitment strategies before the start of the school year so they're ready to be implemented at the start. Since liaisons are the ones not primarily in school, because usually they're not teachers in the school, their primary role is to be sure to support the school advisor, the student leader, and even maybe coordinate with the school activities coordinator. That could be a leadership teacher or whoever, if they need new ideas for membership recruitment and things like that. So we definitely want to support this role, and we're happy to do it.
Okay, next we're going to talk about the Rotary International Club certification process. So once you get your club formed, you're going to want to get it certified and recorded through RI. So it's a very simple process. The liaison completes a form, sends it to Natalia, who then will get our district governor's signature, and then she submits it to RI. And it takes not even a month to get certified. There's no cost. And then once you do get certified, it's very important to make a big deal about it and to have either a club meeting where everyone gets together, or you might want to go to one of the Interact Club meetings and celebrate the success. Give them pins, give them t-shirts. You can get all sorts of stuff from Russell Hampton, but it's very important to acknowledge that this is a very major event for them. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the projects that interactors do. And so we've got a few slides of projects that we have had recently. This one is from Harvest Against Hunger, when we had our Interact Takeover Day. So basically what we did is we invited all of the kids from the Interact clubs in our district to go to Harvest Against Hunger, and we coordinated with David Bobanek, and we had a special day for that. And we had over 60 of them there, and I think we had 40 people from the sponsoring Rotary clubs. But it's really great to involve them in Harvest Against Hunger because it's a district project. They really love community service. So high school kids and middle school kids, it's all about community service for them, and also just the opportunity to meet other kind of like-minded individuals in their own schools. But that was a very fun event. It's also great to just involve them with your club. That gives you and your club members an opportunity to connect with them. You probably all know about RILA, and unfortunately this year RILA had to be canceled like pretty much everything else. So we didn't have a RILA program, but it's a 3-day leadership development program that we have annually every year, and it has been at PLU. They stay overnight, and one of the things that we encourage our participants to do is to come back and take on a leadership role in their school or in their community, if they're comfortable with that. So many of our RILA participants have actually started their involvement with Interact that way. We've had a couple of clubs start as a result of RILA. So it's a great program. About half of our participants at RILA are interactors. So that's a fun thing for them to look forward to every year. We'll have one in the spring. We actually think we're going to be moving from PLU. So you'll hear more about that in the future. As I said, they love community service. And so it's very, very important to find out from them, what are your interests? What do you want to support? And how can we help you? So this is the slide from Eastlake High School. And there was a very dynamic president there, Tyler Zangaglia, who started Hope Fest, which is a community service project for low-income kids. And they provide food and clothing for these kids. You can see it's a big club. Tyler is really an exceptional person because after he graduated last year, he went to Gonzaga, and then he started a Rotaract club there. So he's the kind of leader that comes out of this Interact program. Another thing we love to do is bring our interactors to our district conference. So unfortunately, again, this year we didn't get to do that. And it would have been fabulous because it was in Seattle. So when we have a district conference that is local, we have a ton of interactors that get to come because it's not that difficult. You don't have to deal with the hotel issue, and the funding is much lower. So this is a slide from when we had our conference at Tulalip a couple of years ago. I think we had about 35 interactors there, but they had a lot of fun. We had sessions just for them, and we also had a very special reception, and that's where we took this particular photo. We're trying to link our interactors with Rotaractors, and this is a very, very important thing to do. Not only does it introduce them to the Rotary life after high school, but they get to be mentored by our Rotaractors. We have a session coming up on Saturday. It's not actually part of this particular program because we started it before this program was enacted. But anyway, it's on Saturday. And if you're interested, what it is a panel of Rotaractors who are walking through what college is like. And they're talking about our Rotaract clubs that we have in our district, in particular, the one at UW and the one at Seattle University, and also the one at UW-Bothell. So if you know of any interactors or anybody at all who's interested in that, we can tell you more about that. Just contact us. Oh, and by the way, the young woman in the middle is Darby Martin, and she's from Seattle U, and she is also going to be our District Rotaract representative this next year, and she's on our Interact board, so we love our Rotaractors. The last thing to mention is that we love to connect our youth service programs together. And we have a wonderful youth exchange program. My husband, Hal, is the chair, and he's doing a session on youth exchange at 7:30 this evening if you're interested. But we introduced our interactors to the value of a youth exchange for them and how important it is in their life. People have said over and over, this was life-changing for me, so important. So we're very happy to connect the two. So next we're going to take you to our website. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, we're good. All right. All right, there we go.
Perfect. This is such a snazzy website. I had nothing to do with building it. Very evident in the professionalism of it. It is our Interact 5030 website, and set up beautifully. Very easy to kind of navigate it in the top right. As you'll see, there is an About page, and that I find would be a perfect screen to have up and ready to go maybe during your first Interact meeting. Or if you have advisors at school kind of wondering what we are, what we do, if you're trying to get someone to commit to being an advisor for Interact Club, this would be a great website to show them so they can kind of poke around and see what we're about, see what Interact is. And then if you see on this About page, towards the bottom, there is a map that if you zoom in a little bit on, it'll show you all of the Interact clubs that we have in our district. And that is a great resource if you want to kind of see what the closest neighboring club is. If you want to do like a joint service project or something like that, that's a great resource. And on the second tab of the About, you'll see all of our clubs listed. And then if you select a particular club, it'll take you to their liaison contact information if you need to get in touch with them if you have any questions. For example, that'll be Jim Tanas and Phil Shilly. And their email is down there. I believe it's just James Tanas. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So that's a beautiful resource if you want to get in touch, if you need to get in touch with any particular school. And their third tab there is fun because it introduces our district board. You'll see Susan there, beautiful photos, and that's me. And then scrolling down, you'll see Darby and Carly Bainbridge. We do have two student representatives from the school. They're the club presidents of two Interact clubs, but because of youth protection policy reasons, we didn't want to post an image and any kind of detailed description about them. But they are there, they are helping us, and they do exist. And it's a wonderful thing to have them on the board and participate with us. And then you'll see event photos. If you select them, you'll see all the wonderful, interesting projects that we're involved in as a district, and take a peek at these because they might inspire you to do a similar project for your club. And they'll give you a bunch of new ideas, fresh ideas. And then if you have photos of your club activities that you would like to submit, we would love to post them. There is a Dropbox on the initial About page that you can upload your pictures to.
Okay, next we will show you projects. So these are some of the projects that we have done at the district level. The first one is the Interact Idea Exchange, which we did last year. And what we did is we brought people together from all of the clubs, and we had sessions for students, advisors, and liaisons. And this was held at the Mercer Island Community Club Center. So what is helpful for you, I think, is if you look down here, you can see some of the slideshows, and we're not going to walk through them now with you, but you can see some of the topics that we had Rotaract and Interact presenters for. So this one in particular was a Rotaractor. She talked about projects and grants. Darby Martin, another Rotaractor, talked about office leadership. Davis Lyon, who was an Interact presenter, talked about leading Interact meetings and engaging members. And then Hasham Azam from UW Rotaract did a presentation on Rotaract. So that was a very, very fun day. We had a fabulous time. And we'll be doing something like this for our Interact liaisons and advisors later this year, probably in the spring. House of Hope service project. So this was something that when we had our liaison and our advisor training, the students got together and they put together packages for babies and toddlers at the House of Hope. And the House of Hope is a shelter for domestic violence victims and their kids. So we put them together and then we delivered them, and it's in a location that is not public because they don't want people to know where they are, basically. But anyway, it was a really fun thing to do for the kids. You can see them putting the packages together there. And they picked that project. It's very important to have our interactors pick the projects that they want to support. Harvest Against Hunger, you saw that already. Then we had a couple of environmentally focused projects. Puget Sound Keeper was a project where we had kids go to Lincoln Park, and it was a beach cleanup. And it was a pretty nice day and beautiful. So that was a fun event. And then the other one we did was at Earth Corps, and it was tree planting on Mercer Island. So we'd like to do a couple of community service projects for the district as a whole every year. In addition to that, when you're forming your own Interact Club, you'll be helping them set up their own projects. And that's something that, you know, we ask you to get involved with them to the degree that you can help mentor and coach them, but they're the ones who organize the projects. All right, calendar.
Perfect. Okay. So speaking of coordinating and organizing projects, this calendar here is a perfect tool for that. You'll see it's updated for May 2020. And we input things like, you'll see that it's Youth Service Month. So if you as a club are wondering, you know, what kind of time would be perfect to plan a service project for, you know, you pick things like Interact Week, or you pick Youth Service Month, things like that. And then you could showcase your activities on social media, get them advertised out. And we also post information on activities that we're doing together as a district. For example, the Puget Sound Keeper and Earth Corps service projects would have been on this calendar, and they would have had a link to the application form and things like that. And this interactive calendar is a perfect tool for the advisors to use when they're creating their own, or they're helping their Interact Club create their own event calendar. Because that way they could sync up things, like I said earlier, that are happening in the school as well as in Rotary, and plan their service projects accordingly, or kind of see what's happening in the district that you might be able to jump in and get involved with your club. And what Susan was just hovering over, you'll see that there is that information link over there if you're interested in the Zoom panel that the Rotary Actors will be hosting this Saturday, as well as the Interact Liaison workshop that we'll be hosting Saturday morning as well. So do check those out. They'll be great resources for you.
The Interact Liaison workshop is a really, it's going to be kind of a review of what we've done this year, plus goal setting and planning for this next year. So if you are interested, even if you don't have an Interact Club yet, you're very welcome to join us for that.
Absolutely. Okay, in that resources tab, you'll find most beneficial. It'll have all the forms and guides that you'll need to start an Interact Club. You have the certification form. That's what Susan was talking about, that you fill out with all of your club information, and you get that submitted over to Rotary International, so they have your club listed and certified. And then the second tab will be a Express Grants tab. And that really do encourage you to take a look at that. What that is our district has a certain amount of money that we put in to help support projects. And there's a certain number amount. So you want to submit your application early, and that each grant is worth $500. So that might go a long way to supporting a service project that your club is doing. So if you could have something thought of and created that they're passionate about and are interested in doing, go ahead and submit an application for one of the Express grants. And that'll be a great way to fund that project and kind of ease the fundraising for them so they could focus more on the community service portion. And there you'll also find an Interact guide for clubs. And that Interact guide kind of talks about everything that we were discussing today, goes into a little bit more details on some things, summarizes some other things, but as far as having a resource to start with, it kind of outlines what you want to do as a club and what the expectations might be and some kind of creative ways to grow your club. Then the fourth option there, you'll see Rotary Citation is what it says, and that goes into what the requirements would be if you as an Interact club wanted to reach for the stars and get a Rotary Presidential Citation for your club year. And that, if you dive into it, it'll have all the expectations and all the requirements, as well as instructions on how to submit for it and then follow up and who you can get in touch with. And then the last part there is the District 5030 Youth Protection Policy. And it is very important that liaisons and advisors review that policy and are very familiar with it, because that is what we adhere to as a standard. We want to make sure everyone feels safe, is in a safe environment, and we can encourage and foster leadership with them and not put them at any risk or anything like that. So please do take a look at that. And then the remaining two, Susan.
Oh yeah, we've got some links. So let us show you the links. So first of all, this link over here is to our Interact Instagram. So high schoolers like Instagram, and one of our Rotaractors on the board is in charge of keeping them informed this way. And we have a Facebook page. And we have our link to our District 5030 Rotaract website. And we've got 6 active Rotaract clubs in our district. And our RILA page. So again, this is actually a program that is coordinated for 2 districts, 5020 and 5030 together. So that covers our review of the website. And now I think we're ready to do our Q&A.
Wonderful. We have questions. I'm going to start with some of the questions.
Perfect. Okay, I'll take the first one. I'm seeing Gordon King. He asked, do clubs use a single individual as the liaison, or are there instances where a group of Rotarians fulfill the liaison role? So yes to that. You can have multiple advisors and multiple liaisons to clubs. We just want to make sure that there's at least one person in that role who can kind of keep the momentum going and keep the excitement going about that particular club. But as an example, for Matson Interact, it had 2 liaisons. It had Jim and it had Phil. And then as far as the advisors, the advisor that we had, Mike Simpers, he did pick some other teachers to assist him, so they were co-advisors in that role. So however many number of students you have, however many number of people you need to be able to connect and get them the service and the support that they need as a club.
Great. Next question.
Next question for Heidi. How do clubs handle fundraising when a donor is looking for, oops, I'm sorry. Next, I skipped one.
It's okay.
Heidi, who has custody of the Interact club money? Okay, so each sponsoring Rotary club should put aside some money to help with Interact expenses. So for example, if you were going to be spending X amount on Interact, how do we allocate it? So we want some money to send them to the district conference if we can. You also want some money to pay for food for their meetings and so forth. So that is handled at the club level. Some of the Interact clubs are going to have funding that is done through their advisor as well. So they're collecting the funds that are brought in. So if they do a bake sale, for example, that will go through the advisor.
Great.
And the next question does tie into it pretty well. It's how do clubs handle fundraising when a donor is looking for a tax deduction for a donation? I would encourage you to connect that donor with the treasurer of your Rotary Club, and they can facilitate the donation coming in and then being allocated to that Interact Club. But by that way, they'll be able to instruct the donor on how they can get the tax deduction using the Rotary Club name.
Okay, next question. Can we gently begin in elementary schools encouraging involvement, inclusion, and service? We do not have any Interact clubs in elementary school. That does not mean that we could not form them. And we do have other districts elsewhere throughout Rotary International that do have them. So it's an excellent idea.
Great. Okay. And we have another one. I'm finishing up this one. There's an opportunity to partner with 5020 interactors in the Rotaract Panel College discussion.
Let me handle that one because I've been working with the Rotaractors who are coordinating it. So it's a very well planned, established session that is already designed. We are very open to having people participate, but in terms of actually being a presenter on the panel, that's already designed and timed perfectly. So I think at this time, what we would like to do is invite you, Michelle, and this is a person from 5020, so welcome. You could call me about that. We can ask them how they would like to then incorporate any help from 5020.
Okay. And next one from Michelle.
Michelle, the answer is no, but I have reached out to Darby. She had a hand in creating it, and she is the one who updates that website. I asked her what forum that they use to create that website. She hasn't gotten back to me yet, but we're happy to get your email and send you that information.
Okay.
Okay, next question. My club is considering starting up a middle school Interact club. Is there a particular reason why only one such club now exists in the district? And that is an excellent question. So when I inherited Interact 9 years ago, there were none. And we just kind of ran with what we had, and we've been pushing for them and adding them every year in high schools. So Natalia, you are probably better suited to talk about how that all happened. Why did we start one at Matson?
That would actually go to the liaison who started that club. I think mainly it's if you have someone who's passionate about being an advisor, being a liaison to the club, we can make anything happen. We can start elementary schools, middle schools, and we can have middle schools are a little bit more challenging as far as getting transportation for the students to service events because none of them are driving as opposed to Rotaract, as opposed to a high school Interact club where they might have older students who can offer rides. For middle school, there's a little bit more coordinating on that part. Their schedule is a little bit tougher. So I think it's more challenging to start a middle school. And so that's why we only have one. But we've worked out a lot of kinks, and I think we can get a lot more clubs going on that middle school level because it is a perfect opportunity to then transfer them on over to the high school Interact level. And so what ends up happening is that you have these kids that are developing these leadership skills at an earlier state, like in a middle school. So then by the time they get to that high school Interact club, they're ready to go. They know how a board functions. They have a much wider understanding of what kind of service projects they could have and what kind of networks and connections that Rotary has for them to use. So we do encourage if someone is interested in starting another middle school club, let's get in touch and let's make it happen. It would be fantastic.
And we do want to start more in middle schools. That is one of our goals for next year. Sure.
So we have 3 remaining comments all around Early Act. So you want to clarify what Early Act is for our participants and then where we are at with that model.
Howard, would you like to speak? Can we unmute Howard?
Sure. Let's see.
Howard Cohen is our district governor-elect, so coming up in 2 years.
Howard, you are
Yeah,
on.
district governor nominee. And then
Hi,
Kathy's our
Howard.
district governor-elect. She becomes district governor in July, and I follow her next July. So,
Are you the elect-elect?
no, I'm the nominee.
Oh, the nominee, okay.
So, yeah, there's Early Act, which is ages 5 through 13. And then there's Interact, which I believe is 14 through 18. And then there's Rotaract, which is 18 to 30, sometimes tied to a university or a college, sometimes, or actually in the community. And then, but anybody can be a Rotarian at any age, usually as an adult. I believe there's something, I don't know if it's formed yet, but due to the baby boomers, I think there is something out there in the stewing called Elderact, which are seniors, but I don't know if that's ever actually
Are
come.
you kidding?
No,
Awesome.
I
Really?
think there should be,
Yeah.
which would be an interesting organization.
I love that. That's so funny.
But yeah, and if you go online and type in Early Act Rotary, it'll give you all the information about that. And
Great, thank you very much.
I'm going to look up Elderact to see if it actually is.
That's so funny.
Great. Thank you. Were there
welcome.
any, we have a few minutes left. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask through our Q&A panel?
Lisa, do we have any in the chat
No.
category? Because I'm showing that we have 3. No?
Oh, maybe you do. No, I don't see. I think those were before we started,
Oh, okay, great, thank
I
you.
believe.
All right, good.
So I don't see any. Let me see, double check just to make sure we haven't missed anyone. Do you want to close with any parting inspirational words of advice for starting a club and encouragement? And how long do you think it takes?
Well, I would say, first of all, the encouragement is that you will love having interactors as part of your organization, for sure. They're very upbeat, they have great ideas, they're very enthusiastic. So we really encourage you to think about this, and Rotaract as well. They're both really wonderful. The youth have so much to offer. Plus, we need to be thinking about our future and the development of membership and meeting our goals in membership. And this is a way, of course, to do it. So Interact to Rotaract to Rotary. Talia.
I would like to say if anyone is considering starting an Interact club, but it seems intimidating or it's not quite clear how you would do it with your club specifically and with the schools that are available in your area, just please reach out. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one and kind of work out the logistics, and then maybe even set up a plan with you on how we can get your club started. We'd be happy to get involved with you and get you going, because you know, it may seem very intimidating and difficult and like a huge time commitment, but once you get things started and going, it is a club that's run by the students, so it gets a lot easier. And we're happy to facilitate and encourage and help in any way that we can.
And we have one last question. How frequently does your Interact club meet?
Oh, can you say that? That's interesting. So we switched it up, Matson Middle School, I mean, because initially they met every single week, but then as they developed committees and subcommittees that were meeting as well, it became a little bit overwhelming to have so many meetings happening constantly. So then as general meetings, they were able to switch it to, I believe it was just twice a month. And then the other times would be filled with the subcommittees meeting or the other board members doing their one-on-ones or things like that. So it depends what will work for your club. You want to make sure you're meeting frequently enough where the momentum doesn't die down and they don't lose interest. But then you also want to be careful not to like overwhelm and overburden students meeting constantly. So I think it's healthy to start off about once a week and then seeing how that works out. And everything can always be adjusted and changed depending on your club's needs.
Great. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to encourage all of you to reach out to both Susan and Natalia if you have any other questions or ideas. And once again, this session will be recorded so that you can share it with the other club members that you're going to recruit to help you launch your Interact Club. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.